129.
I got last message. It just keeps ringing.
Moved by Councillor Rolla, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that the special meeting commence at the hour of 1:30 p.m. And be it further resolved that Council acknowledges that we are meeting in the Robinson Superior Treaty Area on lands that have been traditionally used by several Indigenous nations. But we would like to pay special recognition to our closest Indigenous neighbours, the communities of Bittergong, Nishnabeg, and Peck-Mobert First Nations. We wish to recognize the long history of the First Nations and Métis people in our region, specifically, and show respect to them today. All in favour? Thank you. Call the meeting to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we move to the approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Rolla. Resolved that the agenda be approved as circulated. All in favour? There are no delegations or presentations, so we'll move to the business of the draft of the 2020 budget.
Thank you. So I know Council has had a chance to look at the draft budget, and what we're prepared to do today is answer any questions you may have. We put the advertising and posting up for the public notice for the 19th of June, and the budget's online, the draft budget's online as well. So maybe what we do is we have the managers stand by. We'll just call them one-on-one if there's a consensus that you have a bunch of questions for one of the managers. And if Council wishes, maybe we could start with, if there's just general or administration type button questions, we could deal with those right away first, and then we'll get a hold of the managers as you wish.
Yes.
Through the chair, I mean, looking at the variance in the numbers, I'm going to pick on basically the biggest one, is the ski hill for $110,000 increase.
Yeah, so you want to cover the areas that are up, or we can bring the manager in?
I think you would, myself, I think you guys could bring the manager in.
Yeah, let them answer. So you'd like Shelley to come in and deal with the ski hill. I'll just get if we've got other recreation questions.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll get her in for rec. Definitely, we can do that.
So which ones are her?
So golf course, swimming pool, ski hill, community center.
Okay, that's all hers. Okay.
If you've got that, so we'll definitely get her in then to do that. Yeah. Well, we can do. Or just we'll see what else if there's administration trying to deal with them and get them grouped together. I think that's in the interest of things. Mm-hmm. We also have the library staff on standby as well. Just trying to keep social distance and not have the whole team in here. Yeah. So, is there any other departments? Are you going to want to talk to Public Works as well, or is there a number of questions there from Council?
I have a question for him.
Public Works?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're definitely bringing them in. And economic development, do you have questions in that area or not? Florence is on standby as well, and the library manager. No? Okay, so those two. So is there stuff for administration you want to go at first, or?
Through the chair, I'm still a little concerned about the generator for the building.
So capital items, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, capital.
Yeah, that one I can speak to. Not a problem. Okay. And then if you want, when we have that department managers in, if there's capital that's under their department, we can just go to that, right. All that stuff, and there's no limitations. I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Line 5, administration.
Okay, just hang on a second. I'll have to look elsewhere.
The kitchen upgrade?
Kitchen?
No, it says line, the fifth item, administration. Just the increase of $529,000.
Yeah, that's a total increase. That's the actual budget for the department, or that's
the variance.
That's variance.
The variance.
Okay, so some of it, a
that.
lot of it is wages, acting pay, increase to benefit package as well. Benefit costs are up this year substantially. So there's quite a bit of there. Something I'm missing out of that.
Then there's the professional fees.
Oh, the professional fees, so the investigation fees and stuff that we have to pay for integrity commissioners included in there.
And
insurance, our deductible for insurance has gone from $10,000 to to 25,000. So there's 40,000 in just, or $50,000 in that one line in case we have 2 insurance claims in a year.
Okay. Okay, no, that's great.
So those are the costs in that department, increases there that make that. It was basically legal, professional consulting, wages, and benefit package.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Through the chair, specifically, what is administration transportation?
That is the My Ride program.
Oh, okay.
That's a totally funded program?
Yeah.
So it's in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no others, then we can proceed to get one of the...
We'll run and get Shelley first, then we'll
Sure.
do the
Thank
recreation
you.
questions.
So while we wait for Shelley, maybe we could talk about a few things on administration.
Sure.
So the property standards, what exactly is the $10,000 for?
Okay, so property standards is a provincial requirement that we have that in place. It's also identified in our strategic plan. So what we're hoping to do is we need to go through a public consultation process. We also need to do staff training, and we also have to do council training, as they are the adjudicator committee for the property standards. If someone appeals their order, they come to council for that. So there would be training for all of council, staff training, public consultation process, and forming the bylaw. So we thought we'd put that money in as a capital item. Right now, we had started to get together the package to arrange for training. With COVID, of course, that's all been delayed. So it's in as a identified thing we need to do as a capital, so that if we don't get to finish or get to it this year, we would carry that forward and have that money dedicated. So as soon as we get lifted of the restrictions, we can go ahead and start that process. So basically, training of all the council and staff is really what that's for. So we have to bring people in from out of town to facilitate the training and the program.
Okay, so it's to enforce, so we are more informed about how we would deal with the bylaws that are in place for property standards.
For property standards specifically, it's also that the intent is that, like right now, we have a bylaw for maintenance of property.
Yes.
So our recourse is one of two things. We can do the work and add it to the tax roll, or we take the person to court. the idea of property standards is it doesn't go to court, that we have counsel to be the adjudicator of that. Instead of going to court, the person, if they wanted to appeal or something, would come to council with their order and get it heard before council and a decision made.
Okay.
So there's obviously some training and stuff, and there's 2 mandatory courses for the bylaw officer for property standards. Once we get into it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well,
Yes, through the chair, could we talk a little bit about fire department?
sure.
So just so people are aware and so that everybody understands, the SCBA replacement, is that not legislated through like an expiry date or
There
some
is-
type of...
Good question. There isn't a given expiry date. It's through the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the maintenance of it. Our present units are 20 years old, and right now this money's getting transferred to reserve fund, not to do the acquisition this year, and it's to have the money in place when the time comes. We're 20-year-old equipment already, and the next couple of years that's going to have to be acted upon, and it's a sizable investment. So this is the 3rd year of putting money away to the reserve fund. So at the end of this year, we'll have $125,000 in that reserve fund for SCBA replacement.
So through the chair, this money is going into a pot, so when the time comes, we'll have the funding there to follow the standards
Yes.
of health
Yeah.
and safety.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. It's just it's a sizable investment. It's not something we want to put on in 1 year. When we bought in 2000, we owned 15 of these units. We bought all 15 at one time instead of different years, and we bought consecutive serial numbers so that if we had a recall or a problem, we had a problem. And also, although they say they're the same model number, and you go a year or two out, there's always these differences, and it becomes training, parts issues, and everything. So we found that over the 20 years, it's been a very reliable system having that consecutive serial number system in place and being for training and maintenance and all the issues that come with those things.
Through the chair, how many units do you require, and what's a rough estimate on each cost per unit?
Okay, so 15 is our
Okay.
complement for operating, and that gives us 14 in service and 1 spare, so that if one goes down, we take the spare, we put it in place, send that unit out for repair, so we don't have an empty spot on the truck for SCBA. Just to give you an idea, they're probably in excess of $8,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that has changed over the years, back when we bought, the cylinders were aluminum, and all our cylinders that we own are aluminum. Going forward, they're going to be composite or some other lightweight material because of the change in standards. So we'll be looking at a change out of all our cylinders as well.
Okay.
So that adds to the cost, which is normally you have 1.5 spare cylinders for every unit. So just trying to figure what you need to have on hand. And so with the 15 units, and then everybody has their own face piece. They don't share the face piece. So we have to acquire approximately 10 extra face pieces for the SCBA as well, because they're direct issue to a firefighter. Just
Oh,
the mask
okay.
component. They share all the air packs, but the mask is theirs.
Okay.
So. And, who knows even if we're going to buy the same brand, so compatibility. Last time we stayed with the same brand, and we stayed with aluminum cylinders, so it was an easy transition. The legislation has changed greatly since then, and it won't be interchangeable equipment.
So it's all new right from top to bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll be set up for another 20, 24 years or in that range again.
Right.
There is a standard, a federal standard on what the pack has to be in service.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's Shelley there. Is that a yeah, come on. Is that mic turned on? Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's move that stuff.
No, it's she's far off the camera. Just grab a chair here, Shelley, at this other
Thank you.
table. We'll proceed with the questions. Maybe if we could address the recreation type questions or on those operations, Shelley could assist with those.
So we can start? Yes.
Okay. Shelley, the question I have is on the ski hill. I'm all for the ski hill operating and year by year, but it seems that it's quite a significant increase at a $110,000 variance. Could you please explain that?
Absolutely. So based on previous experience, the SLMB was contracted out prior to my arrival. We don't have an SLMB to operate the ski hill. That was created, that is implemented by an SLMT now, which is myself and a volunteer, and we've hired for that position to be filled, but they're not legally allowed to work on the equipment without an SLMB to assist, to direct, to write off the required training module to present to TSSA so they can become an SLMB and legally work on the equipment. So that comes at a big cost because we have to contract out to Thunder Bay. It's through contractor Ward Bond, thank you. Ski Lift. They come out and do our audit. They come out and support our snow making, and the mechanics come in as well, which is why it's been increased at such a dramatic rate. It's a requirement by law to be done this way. I can't speak to historically how that all played out. Do you understand what I mean?
Not really. Is this like a one-time deal, or is this an annual thing?
It's a gradual thing. It's like an apprenticeship, although it's not an apprenticeship program any longer. So the SLMT, the ski lift mechanic in training, has to meet the requirements of specific amount of hours on specific tasks, just like any apprentice would do. They would have a licensed trade work along an apprentice. Well, because we don't have a licensed trade on staff at the ski hill, we have to contract it in. So we have travel, we have all those costs that are associated with bringing a contractor in that is licensed to do the work to train our employee to get the job done and operate. So we have a breakdown, for example. Some of the things I'm written off for I can do without assistance, without requesting the licensed mechanic. But there's a lot of things that I can't just go and do. And there's amount of hours that have to be allotted to get written off on that. So with the turnover rate, there's been no one who's graduated through the process to meet the requirements to operate by law with a mechanic, a licensed mechanic on site. They're still in training. So depending on how enthusiastic the employee is will depend on how quickly we can get them through that. But even saying that, it takes approximately 4 years to become a licensed mechanic because the amount of operating hours, we're only open a couple days on the weekend, right? So you don't have as many breakdowns as a business that would operate 7 days a week. We only operate 5 hours a day for the most part. So there's a lot shorter of a time span that folks can get training hours accomplished.
Okay, so my understanding that if you do not have some employee that sticks around for any length of time, that this could be a high cost every year ongoing.
That's correct.
So the actual cost is, I don't know, way outdoes the income, let's say.
Absolutely.
Is there any way around that, or is there it just seems like a,
It's expensive. It's very expensive to operate the ski hill. I don't deny that. In a perfect world, I would hope to see the employees stick around for years and years and years. Like previously, I know there's been a couple who've been around for a long time, as well as system was not as regimented by regulation in the previous years as it is now with TSSA involvement.
Could I
Yeah, go ahead.
interject? Before last year the ski hill wasn't open at all.
Correct.
So the cost of that additional trainer wasn't, that's why you don't have it under last year. But years before, while we had somebody there, that person wasn't qualified, and we always had to get the help and pay for the help from Thunder Bay.
True.
That was part of the requirements of running
On
the
an
ski
annual
hill.
basis.
Yes.
Now, what was
Now,
that?
there was only one time, once we got, there was a fellow by the name of Dave Young who finally got his certificate. And we, for those 4 or 5 years that he stayed here, we didn't have to have the help from Thunder Bay. But once he left, and the new people, if they don't have their license, you're either going to pay for the person as a salary, or you're going to pay for the help from Thunder Bay, one way or the other.
Through the chair, just to kind of touch on that a little bit. From what I understand, with the position being set up the way it is now, having a full-time position, potentially that will entice the employee to stay a lot longer and benefit from this, right? So this is going to be a training process. Once the training is complete, we will have a certified ski hill technician on board, and going forward, for as many years as that person stays in service, we will not have to have training come in. But like Shelley's saying, it's just going to be a little bit of a process because of the hours of operation. But once his unofficial apprenticeship is complete, we'll have that for our township. So it won't be a reoccurring cost in the future as of right now.
Okay, so am I understanding it properly by saying the average year in the long run would be, let's say, $20,000 for Thunder Bay people to come in and certify and help out?
Depends on how many breakdowns we have and what we're allowed to repair based on our training perspective.
So every time there's a breakdown, they have to come from Thunder Bay?
Every time there's a breakdown, I have to make a phone call. If we're not already signed off on that procedure, I have to make a phone call to Thunder Bay and request, can we go ahead and do this? This is what we want to do. And they give us the yay or nay. If it's something big, like, for example, prior to January, we didn't have anyone that was written off to even replace a T. So we got lucky and had a breakdown where we were able to rope it off and have the assistance from Thunder Bay on a downtime. However, if it happened during an operating time, then we would have lost even that revenue. And audit that I mentioned in the summertime has to be done for TSSA documentation. When they come in and do their inspection, the auditor's already been through. Once SLMT has done their training, they are now able to do an audit. And once we get them to the SLMB position, then we can, as a corporation, apply to become a licensed operator, and there will be no longer a need for the ski lift bond ski lift company to be our lift contractor.
Okay, I think I understand. So theoretically, this number should dwindle down to
Theoretically.
eventually, as long as employees and everything stays into place.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there another question? I thought there was another question for...
Yes, through the chair, just playground upgrades. Could you talk a little bit as to what playground upgrades you're going to be doing, or that we plan on doing?
We're hopeful to do upgrades with Barnett. The trailer park playground has been slated for demolition. We've got to look after safety of everyone, right? Upgrades-wise, we're looking at coordinating with revitalization in Main Street and all of that so that we can get the most bang for our buck and continue with the momentum that those folks are doing in their world, coordinating to make sure that we look the same, we act the same, and make it better for the residents, the little people community, I call it.
So the snowmobile that you guys are requesting for, can you talk a little bit about on that, like as to what happened? And
Certainly. So operator error took the snowmobile up the hill with the brake on, and we had a fire when we got to the top of the hill. Inexperience, didn't react with snow, reacted with what do we do now, and then when we sorted out the fire extinguisher, etc., too little too late. So our mechanic had a look at it and deemed that it was no longer serviceable.
Through the chair, the golf course equipment replacement, what specifically will you be replacing?
I believe that is the greens mower. Let me just look for my notes. The Toro, what is it called? It's not a lawn boy. Rider is getting old, so we're looking at putting a little bit of money towards a bulk equipment order. Toro lawn mower, the greens mower reels need to be replaced. The fairway mowers are actually $3,000 to $5,000, and you need 3 for one set. $3,000 to $5,000. So I'm trying to build a reserve to get the anticipation of replacing stuff as it gets older. Some of the stuff is 1994, and there's no intention. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. There's you always want to be proactive when putting money away. It's like looking at your roof in the future, right? You want to put some money away to make sure you can repair it or replace it.
right. Through the chair, could we not put some type of a midlife type program in place for some of this equipment?
So with Treasury assistance, they're actually working hard on asset management. And because I'm new in this world, I'm still gathering the data, and we're working in coordination to try to make sure that this is depicted so that we can start tracking thoroughly what needs to be planned for in the long term and duration of life, so that it can be proactive rather than reactive.
Definitely.
And once the asset management program is in place, we should be able to tell you what the life of every asset we have is and how we have to plan for it over the years, putting money in reserves for each item.
Creation questions?
Just one through the chair. The ammonia plant that's in the rec center, can you just tell me a bit about that? I thought last year that was fixed.
So deemed on the TBT report that depicted that the ammonia plant ventilation is not up to snuff. It's not meeting requirements. I had put the report into the ICIP grant application in hopes that we could get that approved and get it through. Unfortunately, with COVID and all the rest of that, the grant awarding has been slowed, and my intention is to address the ventilation issues so that we can operate our arena prior to the grant. I don't feel that we have an opportunity to sit and wait. If we're not going to meet TSSA standards with ventilation, we won't be able to operate our ammonia plant.
Any further questions for? Thank you very much. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry, whenever you could come to the council chambers, please. Thank you. Yeah, if it's required, I guess we have to, eh? So, yeah, good enough. We'll carry on. Yeah, okay. We'll carry on with other questions, hopefully, and then we can deal with yours when you get here. Thank you. Good. Just another question here, but those two, the playground question and the golf course equipment question, those are both transfers to reserves, not to be acted upon this year, just to start to build fund for maintenance of equipment.
So the ski hill one, though, is
that will be happening. That's operating cost for this year, Councillor.
Without that amount, does that mean the ski hill doesn't run?
Well, we can't run legally without the TSSA certified person from Thunder Bay. We do not have those people on staff ourselves.
And it will cost that much?
Well, if you go back to the budget, Chris, for last year. So if you look under training and development, actuals for 2019, we spent 31,000 in a line item that had 10. And that money was paying those individuals. So this year, we're trying to make the budget look more reflective and putting costs actually where they need to be, in the right line. So they have estimated, Shelley's estimated that 45,000 would cover the maintenance of the ski hill and snowmaking for the coming season. Plus that's in there. We have a brand new staff member, as Councillor Scalpinelli alluded to. That was the intent, that we would hire a full-time person and train them golf course and ski hill with the intent of being able to retain people as we train them. You know, it's frustrating to train people and then have them move on. We understand that, and we like to hire trained people as well. So hopefully by doing that, and we have that individual in place now working for us. He's on the golf course right now working. And we will overcome that hurdle in the long term.
So his wages would be, the expense would be shared between the ski hill and the...
Yeah, they actually have, we talked about that. It was a date, and it's like half 6 months and 6 months kind of thing.
60% ski, 40% golf.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
so 60 of them. Okay, that's the numbers there. Yeah, so 60% of their wages would be at the ski hill and 40% at the golf course.
Oh, okay.
Their time split over the course of the year. If council would like to do a better comparator on that operation, the report that Shelley had prepared for you on the ski hill a while back and had submitted to council, you know, maybe there's your opportunity to take your budget, look at the report and the numbers, and you'll see the cost and what's the benefit to the community.
So, I mean, I don't know if this is the place to ask this, but is there any plans or any thoughts about, having the ski hill open more hours to bring in more revenue, or longer season, or anything like that, just to kind of offset the cost?
Yeah.
Or more promotion, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just to, because I don't want to see the ski hill go away, but at the same time, is there a way to get the revenue coming?
Yeah. the answer should be yes, and you're right. But lots of times if we have a seasonal membership, they ski more. It doesn't mean they generate more revenue. And I know maybe limited hours isn't making it attractive, so we have more people buying memberships, so there is a trade-off there. And you're right, it is a lot of investment for what we mentioned, 10 hours a week. So can we increase that hours and make the operation more attractive so more people want to buy memberships? And that's really should be the...
Or even more people
coming
come
in
from out of town.
Yeah, and that's weekend. I mean, I know, we've had pretty good success lately with drawing people from outside the community, Marathon and White River and Hornpain in for skiing, and maybe even lengthening the day then on a Saturday to make it a longer day to make
something
it more,
to make it more attractive to get more revenue.
that trip,
Yeah.
make that trip worth it. Yeah, for sure.
More promotion.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, I know, over the years, and you've been involved in some of those conversations, Councillor, where if we had a Friday night, Saturday ski, would they come in, would they get a motel room, would they make us a destination, and that legwork needs to be done.
Okay. Yeah, that might be just something to
For sure, it's,
promote like a business, like it's,
when you
it's
talk
not
about,
it's going to come in.
yeah, and you talk about the number of people, the cost per skier kind of thing, and only by increasing the number of people or the length of the activity is your chance to lower that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the chair, when she was talking about, she was hoping to have the money for that ammonia plant upgrade through a grant, but because of COVID and everything, if the money's put in now and in the end it gets approved through the program, it can't be replaced, can it?
Well, there's an issue with this particular problem. We've had some minor ammonia leaks and stuff with the plant, and because the room is not venting very good or stuff like that, it creates a health and safety concern in the building. It's been identified by Thunder Bay Engineering when they looked at the plant. We put an alarm system in to say we have a leak. We didn't put the proper ventilation in to stop having an accumulation or build up of ammonia in the thing. We talked about, I know the application's in, there's no guarantee we're ever going to get that grant, but this being identified in the engineer's report and the health and safety concerns, for $45,000, if we can deal with that this year and get that fixed, if we're going to be opening this year and running, it's highly advisable to do that work.
Oh, I understand that, but what I was asking is if in the end the grant gets approved, because I know it's put on hold,
Yeah.
if it gets approved in the end, can that money be put back in to replace what
Yeah.
is potentially approved in the budget?
You wouldn't be able to take an already funded cost.
That's
and
what
put
I'm
it in.
asking.
But we're talking about that application, I believe, for that grant is over $4 million.
Yeah.
Such a wide scope of work, and if we don't get it for 3 years, just price changing on what
Right.
we've estimated now to what's come available, $45,000 won't go very far on $4 million.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, are some of these costs, are we able to use some of the MWMO money for community well-being?
Certainly, you can, Council, you have that prerogative. We did receive the $700,000 payment from them at the start of this year. That money is available to you. There is a proposal before Council that will come up at the next Council meeting where $200,000 of that will be allotted to the program. So there's some of it being spent. Certainly it can, but right now we have healthy reserves for the community, and we've presented a budget with a 0% increase in light of inflation and all the stuff that's going on right now. And so if you inject money, you don't take it out of a different reserve fund, or you actually in fact go below a 0% increase.
I haven't been here for the last 4 years, so I don't know what any changes they had, but the policy that we had agreed to with NWMO at the time we joined, and we were getting the $400,000 a year, was that the money wasn't to be used for year-to-year operations. It was to be used for special projects. So I consider that part of the year-to-year operations, repairing equipment that's intended to be fixed every year. Now, I'm sure they would make exceptions, or we can make exceptions, but kind of goes away from the original agreement that we had.
You know, that application for the I think it's $4.2 million, requires us to inject $1 million into that program. So if that reserve funds are sitting there, you could use it towards that application. You know, I mentioned this the other day. I look at the airport where we're going to collect $3.1 million in a government grant here shortly for a $200,000 investment on our part. That's good leverage in maximizing the community investment fund, the well-being fund, that the NWMO dollars would really put them to good use and well intended. You know.
And through the chair, as you were saying before, all these funds, we were going to sit down after this is all over and look at all the reserves and see what we've got total and maybe put our heads together on what we're thinking about, exactly, as well as the rest of the nuclear waste money. I know a few years ago a committee was formed with the past council. They went to the people and they allocated some of that for really good reasons.
Certainly, we did have a public process that one time and asked the public for suggestions and input, and a number of projects or initiatives were done that way. Certainly, we did say at the last budget meeting that we have healthy reserves. Some of them are obsolete in their titling and their intent, and it would be a good exercise to go through and look at all the reserves, and if they're obsolete or not going to be done or not the priority of the future, that those be repurposed and refocused on what the priorities of the municipalities are. So,
making everything current.
Yeah, we're waiting. As I say, we still don't have the final auditor's statement for 2019. We expect to get that back hopefully by the end of this month is the plan, possibly even at the council meeting of June 24th. And we will get the final report on the status of the reserves, have the accurate reserve balances and the interest calculations of 2019 done and factored in. Then you can sit down and start to have that exercise. And I would suggest maybe that the management team look at all the reserve funds, prepare a report, bring that report to council to look at the allocations and identify things that are obsolete or aren't going to get completed or shift in priority. We also have the recreation master plan in, and I think that will be another area to help council focus, you know, on things like the ski hill and you know, set some priorities for you. And as I said at the last meeting, I think it's important that we bring the scope of the study back to council and have you approve that scope before we go to tender on that study. So you're making sure you get the type of information back that you need to make those decisions. If there's any other, Terry's going to be a few minutes if there's any other administration questions or.
Through the chair, let's discuss the backup generator. So it was brought up last year, and can we have a refresh, please?
Sure. Okay, so we identified it. We had put it on the budget last year. It was mentioned that a report should come back to council. That just never happened. The actual funds never got committed in the budget either. So we couldn't do that. We had to come back to this process. So we put it in this year. I encourage council to consider the generator for emergency management and community planning. We have a huge obligation to manage an emergency in the community. All the agencies are supposed to work and report through the municipality for emergency planning. We're in the middle of a state of emergency right now, and can use it as an example. At the onset, we didn't know how serious this was going to be, how many people were going to get sick, and what we're going to think. I equate that we could have had that problem be serious, have a hydro outage, and hydro be short-staffed and stuff, and stumbling trying to manage this stuff and get the power back on. There's two other ways to look at this as well. We've had about in excess of 16 or 20 hours of power outage already this year that we sent staff home for. So I asked the treasurer, acting treasurer, to run the numbers and let me know what it costs per hour to send all the staff home with this building. They still get paid. And if we do approximately 12 to 15 hours of closure of this building a year during operating times, that would equal our annual costs. You know, I'm looking at a generator around $100,000 with a good 30-year plus life. So we're talking about $3,000 a year. And if we send our staff home because of no power for about 12 hours a year, we'll spend that kind of money. So just being able to keep that and recover that. There is another program that we've been working with starting in the new year, and it's called load shedding. And it's a big program that manages or help manages the hydro grid and keep it balanced. So it's usually for industry. It's not common in municipalities, but they've approached us and wanted to know if we were interested. So what they do when the grid gets really busy, they're looking to balance the grid and to get hydro. So if you're invested into that program and you can shed hydro for 4 hours, they'll compensate you for that. So for our load that we looked at, we could share and stuff, it's about $3,500 for a 4-hour load shedding. So if we did one load shed a year, you look at the price of generator, you'd spend a couple $100 on running fuel, and you want to test run it anyways, so it actually becomes a really good program for us. Industry does this. Mines do this now. I know mines that will actually shut down their operation and take advantage of the load share to pay back their stuff. You know, the gold's going to be in the ground tomorrow, is their kind of their attitude about it. But for us, we could keep running, do a load share, 4-hour load share, and basically pay the generator.
So you're saying the generator will be large enough to put back into the grid?
No, the generator wouldn't feed back into the grid. What we do is take our load off the grid. So when you take that transfer switch with a generator, you switch over so your generator's providing your building. We're not taking power from the grid. So the demand on the grid gets stabilized, and that's what they're looking for.
And they would kick back for that?
Yeah, they'll pay us for that. Yeah.
So we don't have to pay our hydro, plus we get a kickback?
Yeah, we're not using hydro, so you're not incurring hydro costs, plus you get a kickback. It's fairly common in the industry.
Okay, see, to me that would be very, very interesting.
Well, it helps pay the. It's one of those. You know, we're still going to have power outages. You know, and if we have a generator, we're not going to be sending those staff home and having that lost product time. Plus, there's a good chance that we'll actually generate revenue with it as well and cover the cost of the thing, so it would be zero cost to the community. And even the savings of not sending staff home is beneficial.
You want to run it a couple times a year anyway.
Yeah, and on top of having it for emergency management for all the municipal office, fire hall.
Yeah, I think they want you to sit there.
Yeah.
So through the chair,
We'll just carry on with this topic and then we'll switch over.
how often would this load share be requested from hydro?
When you sign the obligation, it's a minimum of once a year. So you only have to do it once a year to meet the requirement of the load share. We've had about 3 meetings with this agency already about this program, and just again with all the stuff that's going on, that's become on the back burner. Yeah.
And the outfit we're looking at is actually they're working a lot further, trying to get more municipalities and industry on board by providing further benefits, such as actually the purchase of the generator. It would actually pay you over time, so that when your program is done in 10 years, you physically own the generator. That isn't complete yet. That is the one direction this one specific outfit is heading towards.
There's more than one company that provide this service actually too. So we're talking.
Yeah, so through the chair. Now, saying that you wouldn't get any kickback, you're just going to end up with a free generator after 10 years.
Yeah. So it's one way or the other.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Right now, that is kind of a concept idea they're talking about. I think the fact if we got the money back and paid our generator anyways, on top of all the other benefits of having it in the community, is a super bonus for us. Yeah.
Just one further. The generator would look after this building and the rec center.
No, it would do all of this building and the fire hall.
And the fire hall, but not the rec center.
No, not the rec center.
You.
You know, and with the new broadband system in municipality now, so that internet system works when the hydro's down. So for us to be able to have this building functioning, have internet and all that on top of that, we become a seamless operation, which is, your company of operations is what you're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. I apologize for being late, but Mother Nature seen me going in another direction. Having to be out in the field trying to keep our road base and infrastructure in place. So with that being said, I'm at your discretion now, so feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my abilities.
Okay, we'll start with any one of the...
Yeah, so through the chair, I see you guys are putting in a request for a 3/4 ton pickup truck. I understand you guys just got a pickup truck just a couple years ago. Is there a reason that we need another one, like it's specific?
Basically, the trucks that are in place are 2009s. The one that we lost another one in March. It was just to the point where it wasn't feasible to repair it, so we scrapped it. So we're down to the 1 3/4 ton we have in place. And in today's world, and I mean, I realize with COVID it's a different scenario, but we're trying to get equipment in place where we're more proficient, not having to have multiple pickups out on site. And the reason why I'm looking at another 3/4 ton is because it's so much more practical for work purposes. The two trucks that are currently at Public Works are both 2009s, and we've definitely got our life out of those units. I know the mileage isn't high, but the running hours and everything else are there. And at the end of the day, it just comes a point where I think it becomes a exercise in futility to keep putting money into equipment that you're not going to get any kind of a return on. At the end of the day, when we do diverse of these vehicles, they're to the point where they're only good for scrap value. So that's the rationale behind looking at another 3/4 ton. And if I can add something into the mix a little bit farther on, I'm sure you're going to touch, you've probably noticed that I've put a capital request in for a dump trailer as well. If I can speak to that in regards to this truck as well, with the residential areas we have in the municipality, we have single axle dump trucks, which are heavy and not quite as practical. A lot of areas we work in are very difficult to get into. With this type of setup here, it would allow us to tread a little bit more lightly, get material a little bit closer, because we're constantly being dragged into residential water digs and things like that, where we're not just working on our infrastructure on the road base, but we're also working on infrastructure on residents' property, and that's where we run into trouble with the bigger equipment to maneuver around. So I hope I'm not being too long-winded, but I just want to make sure you've got the information.
No, through the chair, no, Terry, that's great. Thank you. I didn't realize that we had taken a truck out of service. So initially, to me, this is just replacing an old truck with a newer, better truck, which is more fitted for the service it's going to provide. No, that's great. As far as the dump trailer is concerned, have you guys considered putting a dump box onto one of these pickup trucks?
While that is practical, because we use these pickups for a multitude of, from everything from water to, at this time of the year, we don't have enough room running students around. Public Works is now looking after the grass cutting and everything else. So I mean, to tie up, the nice thing about having the dump trailer is both 3/4 tons are going to be able to set up to pull it. So if one is busy out on another task, whereas if I dedicate the one truck with a dump box, it kind of makes it exclusive and doesn't quite give the practicality of being able to fit into other venues as required.
Nope.
And the other thing, I did cross my T's and dot my I's on that, to put a dump box on a 3/4 ton for what we're looking at purchasing the dump trailer. It's actually more because there's more involved than just putting a pintle hitch on the back and away you go.
Sure.
So that was my rationale behind that. And the other thing that comes into play is weight restrictions. We'd have to get into a 1 ton in order to get any amount of quantity of material that we can haul. So with the dump trailer, we're at arm's length of that.
Perfect.
It falls into the category of the GVWs for the 3/4 ton.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Terry. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Through the chair. Okay, as far as the dump trailer is concerned, I just bought one last month, and they're a lot more versatile.
Yeah.
As you use it as a utility trailer too, if you get different tailgates, etc. Now, to be honest, the price, I think your price is just a little higher than it needs to be for that, but that's just a matter of shopping around.
And again,
and I could,
if I can comment, I wanted to get information. Once we get to the stage, I am going to revisit, and of course, if I can negotiate a better a deal, that's certainly something I'm going to look at. But I wanted to have all this information in place, so at least you have some kind of figures to look at.
Yeah, no, which is great. I mean, it's not that much about. Now, I guess my biggest pet peeve is, and I'm sure you have all the answers to this, is the condition of the streets in town and the paving. If you have a program set up to, do the patchwork as far as certain streets are concerned, like, Ohsweken being one and so on. Because to me, I think that's what the public see, and that's, to me, their biggest complaint. They do not see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's just a focus that I think we need to set up.
If I can comment on that, Councillor, I do have all of my utility cuts have been measured out. I'm ready to pull the trigger on that as soon as I get the green light to move ahead, because I've been in touch with contractors, and the window to get advanced work done before we get into fall is fastly closing. So I'm trying to be as proficient as I can be on that. I've got everything set right now to the tune of about $95,000 to get all of our utility cuts repaired. That's everything that's in place as of right now. Now, you speak of Ohsweken and other streets. I can, excuse me, I can put that on mute. I'm new to the mix, and when I came here this winter, it was certainly pristine. As the snow melted, I began to realize that it was far from pristine. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. With that being said, I can well understand where you want to see asphalt and road work done, but there's another step that we have to look at, the infrastructure underneath. And I mean, that's something, as much as, everyone would like to see sections repaved and reworked. There's numerous sidewalks in town that require work, and Ohsweken is a prime example. I've already had preliminary discussions with our acting CAO at encompassing our sidewalk, our shoulders, and our gutters, raising that up and paving everything so we've got a paved sidewalk as well as a paved shoulder where the water can get away. But again, we have to look at infrastructure. With that being said, we have to involve outside sources to come in and do a study on what needs to be done, because at the end of the day, I'm far from an expert on that end. I'm quite proficient on what I do, but when it comes to items like that, we have to look at involving more aspects of information to make sure that we're putting our dollars in the right area. Because at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is be sitting here a year from now, deer in the headlights, where we've ripped up a new section of road to do infrastructure repair to the new asphalt. So I mean, as it sits right now, I'm looking at areas that I can improve, but to say there was nothing on the shelf when I come into this office with a plan in place for upcoming work, that's something we need to build on as we move forward. So I hope that answers your question, Councillor Moffat.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation for us and also for the public. It's, just at least now they have some answers that,
yes.
We are definitely working on it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Through the chair, if I could, Gary, not to put you on the spot, but did we also, I'm not sure where we left off with Aqua about water main, sewer main inspection.
That is something I had a discussion with Patrick yesterday. He's still working on that, and he hopes to have something to us hopefully by next week in regards to that, because that's another step of the puzzle that has to come into play as well.
Yeah. For the benefit of council, we've been trying to organize to get those inspections done of water main and sewer main for where our problems are. Some of that's funded through OSEPA money, and it's just a matter of getting that work scheduled and going ahead with that. And then that'll be easier for Public Works to work on their paving priority plan, if you will, of streets.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Through the chair, the parks equipment, what specific is that?
I'm sorry.
The parks equipment?
The mowers, Terry. Was that the 2 mowers, 25,000?
Yes.
That's the replacement of the mowers.
Yes, as I stated, I've been asked to have the summer students who do the grass cutting and that under our wing moving forward. We have ample supply of hand trimmers, push mowers, but we're lacking drastically in the lawn tractor end of it. We've got an older lawn tractor that's out at the graveyard. We've got a unit at the golf course that I guess has been shared over the years, and it's getting tired. What I'm looking at is getting a couple of zero steers, which are of a commercial grade, which are more practical for the landscape that we do. We do have a bat wing mower for our small municipal sidewalk tractor, but unfortunately a lot of the areas that we have to do, that machine is too heavy. We can't get in, we can't use it at the graveyard, we can't use it any in the low-lying areas because there's a good possibility that we'd end up getting it stuck and creating more problems than advancing. So that's my thought behind that. If we can get a little bit more proficient on doing the bigger areas, it's going to give us more time to concentrate on the hand areas that are more time consuming.
Okay, thank you.
These, these 2 mowers are 60-inch wide each, I believe you
Yes,
said.
they are.
And right now, sometimes we're mowing those areas with 24-inch wide push mowers. So it's just, it'll free up manpower and make us all way more efficient in the
Yeah.
service.
And, Mr. Chair, just a note too, that I've seen the snow pusher. To me, that is an exceptionally great efficiency saver for the winter, just in case people. So no, I was glad to see that there, actually.
And I mean, I see the need for a lot of improvements, but at the end of the day, I tried to concentrate on things that are going to show the initial results right out of the gate. And winter maintenance is something we're going to be looking at and revamping how we do that coming into next season. Of course, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. We have a new tandem combination coming into play from last year's budget, so that'll be in place sometime in August. So we're certainly going to have a more proficient piece of equipment on that end of it to move forward, not to mention our summer works programs and stuff like that. We're going to be able to be more proficient and more practical on the task as we move ahead.
No further questions? Well, thank you very much. Good presentation.
Not a problem. I apologize for making you wait, but like I said, we're in a situation now where if we don't get this work completed before the next rainstorm, I'm afraid that we're going to lose some of our much aged asphalt, but it's still in place. So I'm going to try and protect it the best I can. If you don't require anything else from me, I'm going to head back out in the field going if that's acceptable.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Don't forget your phone, Terry.
Oh, yes. I actually done that on purpose.
Hey, you want to trade? I have a really good phone.
I'm sure you, if
I'm
you
just
had mine
kidding.
for 24 hours, you'd be giving it back to me really quickly. All right. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, now the other one was the library.
Library's available if...
Were there any questions for the library, or is it just a straight,
Got nothing.
pretty well say straight from other years.
Well,
So I think we're pretty well there. Is there anything you want about?
Just curious on how council wants to proceed. Obviously, the generator is a topical thing. We have more questions. I think the council wants to consider or not consider that generator. You can call the question, but
Well, if we approve the budget, doesn't that call the question for everything that's in the budget?
we can. But if you call, again, well, obviously that's not going to happen.
Not today, but I'm
if you
just
want to
saying.
call the question at that date, then you could identify and do it all at that time. To the chair.
That's the way we traditionally do.
Okay, if you're happy with that, sir, I'm good with that.
Through the chair, if I may, I believe that now that it's been explained a little better and we actually have a little bit of more of an understanding, and also with the potential revenues that have been put into place, in my opinion, I have no issue with the generator
Yeah,
going
well,
forward.
that's what I'm saying. If we had an issue, we'd have asked you to take it off here.
Okay.
But since we didn't, we will approve it along with the rest of the budget at
Okay.
the
So
budget
we
meeting.
have we still have our public meeting scheduled for June 19th, which is the Friday morning. Jolene, am I correct? Yeah. And then we will come back to the meeting on the 24th of June, that evening, and give the budget final approval if council is satisfied.
And that would satisfy the public too, because we don't want to approve anything in the budget before we at least have a consultation with them.
Yeah, it's a mandatory component,
Yes.
and your notice, and the notice is out now. If you look at the municipal website or Facebook or that, on the process to get the questions or emails to Jolene or phone in, and that information is publicized for the public right now to access.
And through the chair, because I brought up the concern today, I'm saying I no longer have a concern.
Through the chair, just one question on the line on council, on expenditures there. Because of the COVID, we haven't done any traveling this year.
Yeah.
There's a good chance we won't be doing any. I know we can still possibly, like the AMO conference is going to be done a little differently.
Yes.
I don't know what costs are involved with that, and there's still the small salary and that sort of thing, but how would that affect the budget here?
Well, right now we are at zero.
Right.
So
Just leave it the way it is.
I would say we've talked about this, and if you go down and you go below zero this year, for instance, the first thing you have to do next year is fund that.
Right.
So if you have some things that happen that require cost of living in general, for instance, is 2%, I think you're better off to have a little surplus in your budget at the end of the year rather than try and cut it up now and go below zero, because the first thing you'd have to do next year is put that back. And if you're going to have 2% and then 2% this year, you could be into a higher budget increase than you would like to approve.
Okay.
Through the chair. So right now, as it sits, what was the increase again? Was it
Zero.
Is it zero or
It's
start with 0.1?
If you want to put that sheet up for us.
The zero, it's 20 cents per $45,000 home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's zero.
Right here.
So that's below.
So
yeah.
if you look at
That's
that,
zero.
a $45,000 house, councillor, which we said was the average assessed income.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's what I was looking there.
So come all the way over?
0.01%.
Yeah, so it's 20 cents difference. It's basically zero.
20
No, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So that right now your taxation increase.
There is no tax increase.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
zero.
which is good.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the cost of living increase for 2020 is 2%. So we've negated that in this based, everything that's going on and trying to look at the budget. So we've negated that in, that 2%, which normally would be good budget practice to build in. Things like hydro prices keep going up and all these other issues that we do.
No, I'm very, very happy with seeing it at zero.
Yes. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing that you want to add?
No, I just think Councillor Moffat to see as well as you're happy with the 0.01%, the essential zero for residential. Have a look at the commercial and industrial properties.
They're actually getting a decrease.
Due to the school tax.
Yes, because of school taxes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So what time is it now?
2:30.
2:38. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Rolla. Resolved that the special meeting adjourn at the hour of 2:38. All in favor? Thank you.